Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Royal Watcher podcast. My name is Saad Salman. I am the founder and editor of the Royal Watcher, a royal commentator, and a royal contributor for Alt.com.
And my name is Sam Gillespie. I am the editor of the Beau Monde. I have a background in fine jewellery and a long-held fascination with history and royalty.
Welcome back to another episode of the Royal Watcher podcast. So today we are looking at the King and Queen's state visit to France, which I think is one of the most anticipated state visits this year, especially because it got cancelled earlier this year due to the political protests in Paris.
Yes, and I think it's quite nice that given his, who is Edward VII to King Charles, his great great grandfather?
Yes.
He was the
Yes.
one to establish the Entente Cordiale, so it's very nice that King Charles is continuing with it.
Definitely. And I think French state visits are one of those things that are really make or break for like British reigns and administrations as well, because it's the response they get is really an indication of how well their reign is going. And the response the King and Queen got was just phenomenal. I think quite unexpectedly, they were really celebrated across France.
They were. It's quite funny on Twitter. All the Republicans were going, "Did you ever think you'd see the day when when you'd hear 'Vive le Roi' in Paris?" And it's like, yeah, they had a monarchy for a while.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of on the side of social media, we both are. There are certain segments of people who think that the French monarchy ended with the French Revolution. Spoiler alert, it did not.
Oh,
And French monarchism is one of those weird things that they have a fascination and they keep on bringing them back. And then it's usually external circumstances that kind of lead to the end of the monarchy rather than will of the people.
yeah.
So no, it's interesting, kind of the general goodwill towards Charles and Camilla, and even the UK at this time when you kind of necessarily don't see a same reaction in the European community, at least politically.
Very much.
So I think let's start by talking about the official welcome the King and Queen received at the Arc de Triomphe, which I thought was actually quite spectacular because usually an official welcome is at the Elysee, and so the fact that really they were amping things up for this visit, and I love this image of the king and the president walking outside the arch because it's just a symbolic display of British and French unity.
Yeah, and I mean, as you say, with the initial visit having been cancelled due to the riots in Paris, this is probably quite a good photo op for Macron. Oh no, we're all calm down now.
Definitely. Yeah, no, and I found it very interesting. And I think one of the things that we didn't get to see too much, I believe I saw a couple of clips, was that they actually rode in a motorcade through the streets of Paris from the Arch to the Elysee Palace. And the president was really enjoying the attention that was the king was getting because there were crowds cheering along the entire route. So I found that quite interesting from like a PR point of view of how
Mm.
Macron is really using this in his favor.
Yeah, I mean, not that we get political on here, so I won't say too much about Macron, but yeah, I can imagine he'd quite like to stand next to a somewhat popular figure.
Definitely. And now talking about the outfits. So Queen Camilla was wearing this coat dress, which is quite similar to what she usually wears, but I thought this was particularly kind of reminiscent of the late Queen Elizabeth and kind of her single tone outfits that she wore most days, not just for state visits, but it was kind of this part of a queenly wardrobe thing that I think Camilla has been trying to amp up in the past couple of months. It
Hmm.
could use a brooch, but I liked it, unlike a lot of people on Twitter and other social media.
Yeah, I mean, do you think they all wore navy blue and didn't tell her, or she was just doing that thing that Queen Elizabeth did, where she had to be what is it seen to be believed?
I think that is probably the memo Camilla got.
But I see.
But I must say that I'm not sure what the age of the French First Lady is, but her outfit seemed kind of very stiff and uncomfortable, whereas Queen Camilla seemed much more kind of at ease with her role and the whole presence of this visit.
Yeah, I'm not really getting the anchor motif with
Yeah,
Brigitte.
she looks a bit like if you were like something a couple sizes too small and you can't move your arms, so she's just stuck
Yeah.
in place. And it just
Yeah.
kind of looking at her makes me feel claustrophobic in a way I don't really think pictures could do that. But I think from like a style point of view, it was fairly basic. It could have been more special, but it was an interesting kind of beginning to visit. And then that evening was really the big highlight. But first, right after the king and queen arrived at the Elysee, the president and king walked from the palace to the British embassy. And I found that again, like we were talking a bit earlier about PR and trying to get that attention. It's a very interesting kind of thing to be surrounded by so many security people and then still choose to walk from in between the streets. And this was really for PR, and the support that the king was receiving. There were people cheering from balconies and stuff. Was really special to see.
Yeah, yeah. As I say, I think it was more done to save face for having to cancel last time when Paris was literally on fire.
Definitely. Now, and I think that's one of those other things where these visits are much more kind of symbolic than really practical, whereas other countries, they go on state visits, the monarchs take business delegations with them, that sort of thing. The British monarchy really more focused on the ceremonial events and the cultural events.
Mm,
And so this is really the lasting change, where this is basically a physical face of the Anglo-French alliance,
yeah,
rather than kind of approving some trade deal or that sort of thing.
yeah.
So this was quite interesting and a nice kind of precursor to that evening's state banquet at the Palace of Versailles.
Yes, which we were all looking forward to.
Yes, I think it's the first banquet that's been held at Versailles since the mid 1980s.
Wow.
And the fact that Macron has decided to bring it back, and I mean, Versailles is the ultimate like French building.
I mean, yeah, it's like the ultimate symbol of, well, autocratic monarchy. And I'm sure they weren't going for that theme. But yeah, if you're going to have a royal banquet, you have it in the most royal palace that France has.
And then in the most iconic room, the Hall of Mirrors.
Exactly.
Because I think previous banquets were held at the Grand Trianon and other kind of outbuildings and stuff, but not necessarily in the Hall of Mirrors. So this is very special for that.
Yeah.
And I think the whole layout of it, because they haven't really done it for so long, so I found like there were still like some cracks in the system, because the way the guests were arriving, it was windy, and then the whole thing, it was not necessarily optimum angles for banquets and stuff. We didn't really get guests arriving into the hall, or even the king and queen arriving into the Hall of Mirrors. And there was just like these are basically the two angles you got photographs from.
Well, they're out of
So
practice. Sad,
yeah,
it's been what, 300 years now? They've got to do better. They've got to do better.
definitely. So it's one of those like thing like I was noticing from like a image point of view, like how they did not necessarily, yes, it got delayed and they were playing around a bit, but they could have probably planned this out a bit better. Which leads us to the next bit, which is talking about the outfits, where I mean it was black tie. And I think I can say for both of us that this is probably the best Queen Camilla has looked in the past decade.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very regal. The outfit, and I like the color. The color matches with the sapphires very well.
Yes, and it's Dior, which is,
Which
I
is a
mean,
nice nod to the French.
it was really nice. I think now she got the Navy memo for this because
Yes.
but no, I found it like we're in this where Queen Camilla is frequently kind of the butt of many people's jokes. But to see her looking nice every once in a while is just lovely surprise, because I think she's gotten much more comfortable with her regular outfits and things in recent years. But when she just tries to do something special, then it makes it look, oh, wow, this is just a really splendid appearance.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it all kind of works and goes together. It's as much as we'll get into it, it's not what I would have wanted, but it's suitable for the occasion. And now that I've calmed down, I quite like it.
Yes, we have to appreciate it for what it is, not what it could be.
Yes.
And so leading on to that question, we're going to talk about the fact that Queen Camilla wore the King George VI sapphire necklace, but unfortunately no tiara.
Yes, and as everyone knows, I'm very calm and level-headed, and I don't react out of emotion instantly. But let's just say I had some choice words when I first saw that she was not wearing a tiara.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. When they announced the banquet at Versailles, I was thinking, okay, maybe they could go white tie. But I was like, no, it'll probably be black tie. And at the same time, I think with black tie, because other queens have worn tiaras at black tie banquets, they have continued to do so. So has Queen Camilla, as you can see in the images of her. But it's much more of a French state banquets have been kind of cocktail dress for the past couple of administrations. So was a bit expected that she wouldn't wear a tiara, but the fact it was at Versailles, people still got their hopes up, and I was one of them.
Yeah, and I suppose she's not really got the hair for, like, I can never pronounce this, so don't come at my French, everyone. An aigrette? Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? So it's
That
not
was-
like she could pop a brooch in the back or anything, it wouldn't work. But yeah, it's a shame because as many of my commenters on social media like to point out, in fact, I don't wear a tiara. Pretty sure the Queen Elizabeth used to rock up at a tiara when it was a banquet, no matter what tie it was.
Exactly. I know I was giving examples of how Queen Maxima has shown up. Even last year, she showed up to a banquet where it was just suit and tie and wore a tiara. So you can't say that was in the past or it's not done. The so-called kind of gatekeepers of royal etiquette really have no idea what they're talking about, especially the ones on social media.
Oh, definitely, 100%.
I think I was more upset by their reaction than I was by her not wearing a tiara.
Oh, I mean, how with what was it, like 2-3 weeks ago I posted my response. I'm still blocking people on Instagram for the comments on this. It's like, it's actually not that deep, people. It's not that deep.
Yeah. And at the same time, I was like, I admitted she looked gorgeous. And the defenders of Camilla were like, oh no, how dare you attack her? And the people that do not like her was like, oh yeah, no, she's just being sloppy and this is disrespectful. Or they're like, oh no, if she wore a tiara, it would have been disrespectful to the president.
Yeah, and I was like,
That's not how it goes. And some people have the audacity to claim they should not wear tiaras at state banquets anyway, abroad, because that's just not how it's done. And I was like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
yeah, if you're gonna wear a tiara, I'm pretty sure an official state function is where you do it.
Yeah, and if a queen wears it, it's literally them honoring the hosts, being like, yes, we appreciate you throwing this whole grand event for us, and we're gonna bring
we've come out with our best stuff.
Yeah. So this kind of the social media warriors who think that they know everything,
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, I meant just a little plea from me. If you are going to have fights in my comment sections, can you DM each other, please? Because I get to see all of it.
I mean, literally, that was the same thing because I replied to a couple of people, and then like they're my friends, and we were just having a civil discussion, and then the haters came in the comments, and it kind of got like ridiculous to point out. I was like, wow, like I'm sorry about that. Like
the amount of people I've had to message and go, I'm so sorry. Like I've blocked that person now, but again, I cannot stress this enough. It's not that deep.
Yeah, like we are allowed to express an opinion, and if you don't agree with it, just move on.
Just move on. Yeah. I mean, if Zuckerberg is ever listening to this, could we please bring in the mute function?
So I think overall, both of our thing was she looked great. She could have looked better.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. If anyone wants to see a tiara, it's going to be us. Of course, we want a tiara at every occasion. It's not a snub. It's not a whatever. It's just it's what we want.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where people think, oh no, the papers would have made an issue or cost of living crisis. I'm like, if they're not going to sell those tiaras to fund the cost of living crisis, might as well wear them.
Yep. And as I pointed out in my post, if you're not going to wear them, put them on display and charge and give the money to charity.
Definitely. Like, you can't hide these things and pretend like you don't have them.
Yeah. And you should let me have a look at them.
So overall, what are your thoughts about this state visit?
Um, what are my thoughts? I mean, it's, yeah, like I said at the beginning, it's nice that we're still doing the Entente Cordiale. It's quite nice. It's nice that we're still doing state visits because, um, when Queen Elizabeth passed, I'm sure people thought it might have been, one of those end of an era things. So the fact that we're still doing banquets in grand palaces is something I quite like. But yeah, again, I think Camilla looked very nice. I would like a tiara, but I'm not getting into that one again. But yeah, all in all, I think it was a good visit. Yeah.
No, definitely. I think I agree with you on that factor. I think it was a bit of a boost seeing them go. State visits are one of those things because the Queen last went to France in 2014, I believe. And she went to Germany in 2015. And since then, there's been like a big hiatus. So people have really forgotten how British state visits used to go because we've gotten royal tours from Charles and Camilla, William and Kate, other members of the family, but they're not on ever the same level as a proper state visit. So we don't really see grand banquets anymore.
Yeah. So it's nice that that's still going to be a tradition that's going to be upheld.
Definitely. And the fact that the British king and queen are getting such special treatment from the French, which
Yeah.
other kind of monarchs did not. So I
Yeah.
find that very interesting as well.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, given kind of the sign of the times, the political and economic situation.
Yeah.
See that.
And haven't the French just renamed an airport after the late Queen too? What are they up to?
The French, I think the Italians did a postage stamp or something. So,
What are they up to?
I mean, at this point, I heard someone saying that the Europeans and the kind of non British or Commonwealth countries, they're being much more respectful towards the late Queen's memory than the
Oh,
British and Commonwealth countries.
yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, because they're focused on their other issues, and whereas other countries are like, oh, she was a leader for our times, might as well honor her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to kind of examine all of these differences.
Mm.
So let's move on. There was a royal wedding in Saxony. It was the first wedding held there since kind of the fall of the monarchy um, in 1918. And since then, this is Princess. Just give me a second. So she is the daughter of the Margrave of Meissen, who is the head of the Saxon royal family. He's a bit disputed because he descends from a female line. So this is Princess Teresita of Saxony, Duchess of Saxony, who married Count Béryl de Saporta at the Hofburg in Dresden.
The
And she's the
Hofburg?
first, the Hofkirk.
Oh, the Hof. Oh, you got me excited there.
Yeah. And so she's the first Saxon princess to marry in Dresden in 140 years.
Okay.
Because they usually got married at some hunting lodge.
Yeah.
But, and I think the last one, the Saxon princess, Hofburg reference, was the mother of the last emperor of Austria. So
Ah.
she got married at the same church, and this is the second prince after that. So when she first appeared, so the Saxon royal family, they've had quite an interesting thing. So they have the famous Greenwald in Dresden, which has like a bunch of heirloom jewels, some of which were stolen a few years ago.
Mm.
And but their personal jewels, a lot is unknown because until the 30s, they had a lot of property and castles and money. And then during the Nazi era, I believe one of their castles burned down, and then they had to flee. One of the princes buried a lot of jewels in the garden, and then they gotten some property back, but it's kind of been a mess all around. So they had to sell most of everything. The fact that this heirloom tiara, which was worn as found by a couple people on the royal forums, was worn by her great 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 grandmother, who was born a princess of Turin, Texas.
Mm.
And this is like one of those family heirlooms that people did not even think existed anymore. And the fact that she wore it means that they're doing better than we thought.
Yeah. I mean, they do seem to have hid the stuff in the right places, a lot of the German royals, apart from the Hesses.
I mean, the Hess did recover something, so it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't too bad, but yeah, if you are going to hide your jewels, don't do it in the cellar.
Even if you cover
Even if you own a Schloss, don't do it in the cellar.
the fact that they had 4 Schloss and they hid it in the one that was literally being used.
Yeah,
That's it.
there you go.
But no, it's definitely. What do you think of this tiara? Because I thought it was nice to see it, but the tiara itself is probably not the most attractive piece you ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it, it looks like that row of pearls at the top has been added on, but not. I don't know. How do I put this? Like, that could be her. Like, I'm not saying it's the lady on the right, but do you know what I mean? That could be like a grandmother set of pearls, and it's been incorporated into the tiara because it doesn't look like it's part of the actual design. You know how the Kent festoon tiara had a row of pearls, or originally a row of diamonds underneath to give it some height. I feel like this one might have, that could be like a family heirloom that's been put on top.
Definitely, yeah, no, I totally agree on that. Where definitely looks like something that's been added on later rather than the original design.
Yeah, but it does kind of look like the Fabergé aquamarine that was it Princess Cecile got from.
No, and that was her sister-in-law Alexandra of Hanover got
That's the one
for her wedding to the Grand Duke of Mecklenburg shrine,
which I saw when it was in London.
Lucky you. We all saw Cecil's Fabergé tiara.
Oh yeah, we did, didn't we?
Because they were, funny enough, Cecil was her sister-in-law, and both those tiaras were sold on the same day in Geneva, but at different auction houses.
Wow, interesting. But yeah, that's what this tiara reminds me of. Do we know the maker?
No, we don't. This picture is the only thing we ever found about it. So
Saxony. When do we think it might have been made? When was the great grandmother born?
She got married in 1923.
Maybe it's a cock one.
Probably, because I mean that family has a complicated history. Because her mother-in-law was that famous Archduchess Louise who ran away with a Hungarian soldier and left her 7 children behind, even though one of them was probably not the king's child. It was his family, so they didn't really have a female figure for a couple of decades.
Yeah. Well, if anyone's got any information about the maker, I'd be very interested.
Let us know. And then going on to the other wedding that has happened recently was the wedding of Archduke Alexander of Austria and Countess Natacha Roumiantzoff-Pachkevitch. Excuse us for the mispronunciation, but we're going to call her Natacha from now on only.
We're not going to call her Countess Natacha?
Countess Natacha, yes. So the couple got married at when they originally announced their engagement, they said they'd get married in Switzerland at the Fairmont in one of the Swiss cities. And then just a few weeks ago, it was revealed that actually, no, they're getting married at the Chateau de Beryl, which his grandmother was born Princess Yolande of Lien, and their seat is at the Chateau de Beryl. It's called the Belgian Versailles. It's like one of the most magnificent palaces in Versailles. And his grandmother, Archduchess Yolande, who was 100 at the time, passed away earlier last month. And so her funeral was held just less than a week before this wedding at the same church. So I think kind of all made sense just have the wedding there.
Did it? Because that gives me Empress Alexandra Fyodorowna vibes. You know, she entered St. Petersburg behind a coffin, or was it Moscow?
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, this one, apparently it seems to have been planned a bit before then, probably because the grandmother was sick. I mean, she was 100, so I don't blame them for trying to be close to her, but it's interesting that it was held at that, because the family, I mean, his mother is Princess Maria of Luxembourg, his father is Archduke Alexander of Austria, one of the grandsons of the last Austrian emperor. So they could have had a couple of residences to choose from and places to get married in, but the fact that they choose this like family place is interesting, and probably only reason is because of the grandmother.
Yeah. Very interesting.
And then they chose not to cancel it after she died.
Yeah.
So I found it quite. I mean, it was a pretty decent royal turnout and everything, but the wedding was held at the Église Saint Pierre in Blois, and so the couple they uh I think the my favorite, this is the church over there. It seemed like a really kind of nice, fun wedding, but it was missing what we royal watchers really look for, which is a tiara.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, we do like a bit of royal watching, but this gave off more of a like a village wedding vibe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Blois is a village, even though it has a huge like palace in it, but at the same time, it seemed a bit homely in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
So no, it was interesting. I liked it from a perspective of it being kind of simple, and it was nice to see a couple in love, but it's the last he was the last sibling to get married, so we won't see a tiara from them anytime soon.
Well, boo.
So it was and then there was a big royal tournament because his uncle is the Grand Duke of Luxembourg, and we had that entire family. Queen Matilde of the Belgians did not attend the wedding, but she was there at the reception.
And is she
So
related, or did she just turn up because it was in Belgium?
it was in Belgium. That's why.
Okay.
I mean, her husband is the first cousin of the groom's mother.
Okay.
They are related, technically. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, she's a Belgian aristocrat. His grandmother was a Belgian aristocrat. Her mother's also Belgian, and I believe his father got a Belgian title, so he's um, from King Baudouin. He got a Belgian title as well. So kind of Belgium is like their base.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So this is what were your kind of views on their looks and the guests and everything?
Um, so my opinion is I'm gonna keep this light, but I will say Google this lady, and that's all I'll say. Um, but no,
I
no,
think
no,
yeah,
no,
there was
no.
some
I'm gonna be
it
good. I'm
has
gonna be good. I'm not gonna
yeah.
say it.
I think we can state the facts. So that is that the Countess Natacha, there has been a bit of controversy surrounding the validity of her title. It's apparently a Russian noble title, but that noble family died out in the 1830s. And the invitations listed her as a countess, but a lot of people, especially in genealogy, have been doubting those claims. And that's created a bit of kind of hostility and some rather awful kind of articles directed towards her.
It's very interesting. I love this kind of thing. So, like I say, I won't go too much into it just because you know me. But yeah, Google it. It's very interesting. But yeah, but like I say, as far as weddings go, like I said about Queen Camilla, I love a tiara, and when I don't get one, I get upset. But this is got it's definitely got more of a like a village country wedding kind of vibe, which you don't. Well, I mean, they're royal, but they're very, very minor. So yeah, I suppose if anyone did rock up with a big old tiara, it would have been like, hello.
No, definitely. I think, like you said, well, they've had grand weddings at this chateau, but at the same time, I feel it's one of those things where they it kind of suited the occasion. The fact that his grandmother just died, it wasn't as kind of flashy as it could have been in that sense.
Yeah.
So no, it was definitely wishing them the best of luck and congratulations on the wedding.
Yes, very much so.
I think so now it's time to call it a day, and we'll talk to you guys